My family felt this little nudge to leave California about 20 years ago, which led us to a search for a state that would offer what our family was looking for. We'd had a couple of friends who had moved to Boise from California, and they said it was the best. So we figured, why not? Let's give it a try. We left for Boise, Idaho in 2002, and we never looked back. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Summer Aston, a realtor in the beautiful Boise, Idaho area. And I know, because I listened to all of your stories, that uprooting your family to move to a new state, leaving family behind, and leaving what you know, even if it is for something better, it's not an easy decision, nor is it easy to do. I understand that it's very different emotionally and mentally to actually take the entire responsibility for choosing to move somewhere completely new just for the sake of finding a better place to live than it is when you move for a job change or a different type of life change where you don't have much choice. So today we are having a conversation with my two wonderful sisters, Celeste and April. Celeste has chosen to stay in California, and April chose to leave California for Texas about 5 years ago. So we're going to talk about what has gone into all of our choices to stay or leave California, and hopefully it will be helpful for you to hear some different perspectives when you are thinking about leaving California or your current home state. And we are all visiting our parents right now. We're literally at our parents' house in California in the bedroom making this video. So we're going to give you a little bit of background on us. So we all started out being born in Southern California when we all lived in an LA beach town until the late 80s. And then our dad had a job change, so we moved to the Sacramento area. All right, so Celeste moved back to LA for a time for school and then lived all over with the Air Force. And then their family has settled back into the Sacramento area where they've been for how long?
We moved back here in 2009.
Okay, and then April's family was in Orange County for over 20 years with a short time in Virginia. And then you guys moved to Dallas area about when?
About 5 years ago.
Okay, so let's start with asking April. So you guys moved about 5 years ago before everybody started leaving California. I mean, some people had started to leave, right? And during that time, that was kind of the influx of people leaving to go to Texas. Boise wasn't really on the radar then. So what was, first of all, kind of the last straw that made you guys leave? Because you lived in Southern California and had your careers there and everything.
Yeah, it was a hard decision. We loved California, and as my sister explained, we'd lived there most of our lives, and there's so many great things about California. But I don't know if there was one final straw, but there was several things leading up to it. But I guess the final straw would be that my son could not get the proper medical care that he needed due to some of the policies that were in the California health system. And so that was something that we just felt we really needed to make sure that he was able to get the medical care he needed. And we also had some concerns about what was going on in the schools. We had our children in private schools for the last 4 years in California, but those things were starting to change too, and so we started looking elsewhere, and the opportunity came up for my husband to transfer to Texas. So we took a vacation out there and met with a lot of people out there and asked a lot of questions, and it seemed like a really great place to raise our family. So we decided to take that
Leap of faith.
Yes. Yeah, we actually ended up on a street called Faith Trail. So we said, this is our faith. This is our faith trail. Yeah. So.
Yeah. And so, like most of you guys listening know, and if you've called me and talked to me, that we always talk about what a huge leap of faith it is when you're leaving everything you know to try something new. And there's a lot of difficulties to overcome. So in this case, you had a senior in high school, so it could have been a little bit easier to say, hey, let's just wait one more year and see what happens. We've got a senior, but it was really the right thing to do. And so did you find that once you got there that your medical care concerns were alleviated? And You had a little bit more freedom that way.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we were able to find a great doctor right away and continue on with some of the care that we were receiving here. And it was so much better for our family.
Yeah, and then you were able to have your kids go back to public school there.
Yes.
And so that was helpful financially too, I'm sure.
Yeah, so they all went back into public school. My daughter finished out her senior year, did great, and my son started as a freshman. He graduated. They had so much help for him. He had a lot of disabilities. He has autism, and so that's why we weren't able to really get the care we needed in the public schools in California. But once we got to Texas, it was just wonderful. They had so many things in place for him at the high school, and he ended up graduating as a senior with really great grades. They gave him the support he needed, and it's been great.
Yeah, don't sell people on Texas.
Oh,
She's selling you all on Texas. We have to sell you on Idaho. So then, so let's talk about schools a little bit. So Celeste hasn't been super happy with the public schools in California, so she's in Northern California. So now Celeste is choosing to stay, and we'll let her talk a little bit more about the reasons why. But speaking about schools, and Celeste also has a child on the spectrum, and so that's a big concern. And I hear that from you guys when you call too. I have lots of you call that are saying, what does Idaho have to offer as far as children that are on the spectrum or have other special needs or educational needs? And so you were able to mitigate that by how?
So we were very blessed. Probably about 10 or 11 years ago, we had actually some family friends of ours wanted to offer some different educational opportunities as opposed to traditional public school. So they started a public charter school called John Adams Academy that offered a lot more of what we were looking for our kids as far as education wise, and help for my son to, again, sort of like what April struggled with her son. We were finding in the traditional public schools in California, it was really hard to get the proper help for our son, and switching him to John Adams Academy really made a big difference for him. He thrived there. He loved it there, graduated in 2020. That's why we were super blessed to be able to have that opportunity here.
So I know we have lots of conversations between all three of us all the time about all the politics going on and how it's affecting everyone. So I know that there's a lot going on with politics that you are not happy with, but what is making you stay? So I'm a realtor. I'm always talking about them, about people moving to Idaho from California. And so they hear it from me all the time. But it's not the right thing necessarily for everybody to leave California. And so what are some of those reasons that made it worth it for you to stay?
So we stayed for several reasons. One, our parents are here. My husband's parents are also here. In fact, we basically share property with them out in rural California. We're very fortunate to have a great piece of property. We were able to build our dream home on it. We have livestock and all kinds of things. We just love it out there, being close to my parents and my husband's parents. We stay because my husband has a very secure job, and we just love it. We just honestly love it here. We are rural California again, so we don't see a lot of the issues out where I am that you might see in the cities as much. So we're quite a bit removed from that.
So like I've talked about with lots of you guys that call, everyone's in a different phase of life, and sometimes you might be in a phase of life where it is getting too expensive for you to stay in California, or you're in between jobs, or you don't have that job security, and it makes it worth it for you to leave to someplace like Idaho, not Texas, and try to find, a better place for you. But having said all of that, you have had to do quite a bit to make to kind of adjust your lifestyle, right? So meaning so their power gets turned off all the time because they're in the hills, where if the wind is too great or it's too hot, they could lose power for 2 weeks. And so they got Tesla batteries and
So we were,
solar.
yes, it was about 3 years ago now, we had massive power shutoffs all across, again, rural Northern California. When the winds get really high, it gets really dry here at the end of the summertime. They shut the power down for safety reasons to not spark these massive fires that have come through from time to time. But yes, we were for without power at our longest was 7 days, which the problem with us is we are on a well. So when we lose power, we also lose water. We did end up we have a big solar system, and we did get 4 Tesla batteries, and those have definitely come in handy so far. We've had the power's been shut off a few times since we had it, and it's nice that our lights don't go off.
And you have water.
And we have
and you
water,
still have water.
especially.
Yeah. So we don't really lose power where we are in Idaho, and most places in Idaho don't. I mean, of course, there's the occasional somebody runs into, a power pole and power's gone for a couple hours, but we don't, and you guys don't generally have a problem with power loss either. Just that one time when the wind.
We had the big snowmageddon last year where everything
pipes froze.
and
Yeah.
But it's not like a general expectation like it is here.
Here
in
we
Northern
expect it.
California.
We expect it every end of every summer and into the fall. I guess it's just a part of life. You hate to say it's normal and you expect it,
Right.
but we do.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things, April, that you guys feel like you've gained since leaving California? And I guess this is kind of 2 different questions, but what was the hardest thing for you guys about leaving? Like, their transition was really hard. They had a long transition, like a year transition period. Talk a little bit about that, because that happens to you guys when you come and move to Idaho too. And it's a lot of people may say, hey, I don't want to deal with that, so I'm just not moving. But if you do it and do the hard work, then you get the reward of getting to a new place to live. So talk a little bit about your challenges when you did decide to move.
Yeah, so for us, we had already decided that we needed to leave California. That was kind of a no-brainer for us, but figuring out where to go was kind of hard. My husband looked at different opportunities. We even looked at Idaho, which we love, and I would be just as happy in Idaho next to my sister, I assure you. But so we were just looking for, some place that we could go where my husband could still do the same line of work.
Boise was just, for when he came to look with a job position in Boise, he was really used to living and working in Orange County in LA, and he felt like it was a little small, and he just was used to like bigger cities and different opportunities. So that was kind of his main concern when he came to check out Boise, was it was just so much smaller than he'd grown up with his whole entire life. But what happened when you guys tried to move?
Okay, so trying to move. Well, we just had a really difficult time finding a house. I actually found a house that fit all those things, but it had some problems with water in the back, so we backed out of that. And my husband, he had taken this job, so he moved about 9 months before we did. And I stayed back to kind of secure things and get the house that we were leaving finished and all that.
And then they did what I do all the time for clients in Idaho, is so her husband was there in Texas and was working with a realtor, and then April was not there. She was in California, and so you had to do all these video tours, and so she had to rely on her husband because they bought the home they live in Texas now, with her husband having seen it in person and done video, but she hadn't seen it.
Well, and I have to say my sister helped me a lot. This is before you got maybe this is why you're in real estate, because she helped me, and we would go on Zillow and go on all these different, websites to look at houses and stuff. And so, so we basically found the one that we loved, and I had to sign electronically sight unseen for this house. And so, but
scary, big deal.
But one thing that did help us was I did fly out earlier, and my husband and I drove around to all the different places that were near driving distance from my husband's work, and we kind of narrowed it down to 3 places that we thought were great. And so I would just start to look at houses in those specific neighborhoods
Right.
and areas. And that really helped, I think, because then I knew that I would at least love the location and it had good schools. I had done some research to find out exactly where we wanted to live.
So yeah, a couple things that come to mind that I'll ask Celeste about, and then thinking about that with the school. So first of all, that's exactly the way to do it, and that's how I help people all the time, is you come out for a visit, get to know those main areas, because even though our inventory is changing, the inventory is still pretty low usually for what people are looking for. And so if you're waiting for that right house to come on the market or have a situation like April's family did, then that way when I'm doing video tours with you, you can see like, okay, I remember that neighborhood. I like that neighborhood. And it gives you so much more confidence in the home that you're buying, because the house is important, but of course the location and the community are very important. Okay, so then also some of April's comments reminded me that I was going to ask Celeste about this, talking about the comparison of the cost of living. How are you guys doing anything to mitigate the rest of the cost of living issues here?
So we've definitely had to make some changes. I think, like everybody across the nation, inflation has, hits everybody. The price of gas in California is always
Let's say gas
outrageous.
prices. Okay, gas where you live.
Well, the cheapest right now, it's come down a little bit, is about $4.95 a gallon.
Okay, so we're about $3.49.
We're $2.79 last time
so
I filled
Texas is the winner on the cheap gas. So what are some of the other things?
Energy costs in California are outrageous, which again our solar system helps with. But we're finding ourselves, we paid, even with our solar panels, we probably paid double last year of what we paid the previous year.
Oh, wow.
Gas for our cars. Again, since we are rural California, we do a lot of driving. So gas is a big expense for us because we're about 10 miles out of town. And so when you're making those drives a lot, about 15 miles from my daughter's school. So that's a lot of driving that we do for gas. We do have livestock, so there's feed for them, and that honestly has doubled in price.
So you can definitely see how it's very interesting how people who are in a position to be able to stay, because you can make those changes. You can choose to have your kids go to a different school, and you can drive them the 15 miles to get to that charter school, or you can make those changes and get the solar panels with this battery storage that you need, or all of these changes that people can make that can make it so that they can stay in California. But then there's obviously going to be a large portion who can't. So for us, I know a lot of you guys move to the Boise area, and I help your whole entire family move, which I'm so jealous because we obviously all live in different places. And we kind of always have, our family's always been a little bit that way, where we just try to get together with how we can. But so how has that been, living farther away from family? I guess in relation to thinking about how anyone watching this might be thinking about that. They're thinking about like, okay, well, if I leave, I'm going to be so far away from family. How has that been for you guys in Texas?
Yeah, I think that has been something that's been difficult. We're all pretty close. I mean, we love each other so much, but in Texas, I do feel very isolated. It is not easy to get on the flight. Our closest airport is DFW, Dallas-Fort Worth. Takes about an hour without traffic to get there, but it's just, there's not a lot of direct flights that we've found. So like you have, and so that's kind of hard. And I do kind of get that homesick feeling. It's not as easy to kind of get to visit family, and we don't have any family in Texas. I mean, the closest we have is Idaho and California. So it does seem like that is something that I do feel bad about. When I lived in Southern California, I could get to my parents' house in 7-hour drive, or to see my sister, and it was easier to fly out of. There's more airports down there, so it is a little bit more isolated there. But
So overall, so I also my husband's brother finally moved to Boise, but we still don't have any family that's come. We've been there over 20 years and we still don't have family that's come. So, to go from Boise to Northern California is super easy flight and an easy, 8.5 hour drive. My daughter actually and her husband and little baby ended up moving to Southern California back to Orange County. So that's part of our lives again. So we are going down there, easy flight again. And I mean, for us, it's not a big deal because we drive a lot. So 14-hour drive, to me, that's a day drive. So that's okay.
yeah.
So it's okay. It's been okay because we're only a day away. But overall, would you say it seems like, and I could probably answer this for you, but it seems like the benefit for your own individual family of living somewhere that met your family needs better is worth, having had to leave your family behind.
Yeah, well, it is because my husband is so much happier. I didn't mention that before, but in California, he was having a lot of problems with his bill. He works for a healthcare. He was a healthcare administrator, and so he's in charge of a lot of buildings, but was getting sued constantly in California. And it was becoming really hard and stressful on the family. Not only that, but just a lot of the policies that went into running those buildings in California and the laws that kept changing were getting really stressful for him. And so when we finally made the decision to move to Texas, he's so much happier and has kind of found a different career opportunity for him that he's been able to kind of change and within the same field. But it's just he's home more, he's less stressed, and our quality of our family life is so much better than it would have been in California. So
yeah, we wish we could all live close together, but we do need to do what's best for our individual families. And I did try to drive to Texas once from Boise. I was like, took my kids, this is a little while ago, and I put my 3 kids in the car, and I'm like, let's just drive. It is so far to drive. It was like 2 15-hour days straight, and it was far.
Texas is so big.
It is big. It is far away. Another thing that people need to deal with, something you may be concerned about when you are moving to someplace totally new, is just how that, the cultural differences. I'd say basically in Boise to California, I mean, I don't know, we've spent a lot of time in Washington. We had a grandma there, in Oregon, Utah, Arizona, like that whole West, it seems to be pretty similar. There's slight kind of cultural differences, but it's pretty similar. You're not going to feel like you're necessarily living in a totally different world, except for people in Idaho are definitely very friendly. They're going to hold the door open for you. So I know when April moved to Texas, this seemed to be quite a cultural difference between Texas and California. The first thing was that her daughter, as we said, was a senior, and she had to go to homecoming. And everybody was like, are you getting what was that thing called? A mum. And April's like...
Yeah. She'll have to insert a picture of what that looks like.
Yeah, I'll put a picture in. And she was telling me what it was, and I was like, that is not real. Like, people do not wear mums. That is not real. So that was kind of your first, I think, introduction to, there's this whole undercurrent of this society in Texas, this deep roots.
Yeah.
So how has that been, like, have you adjusted to that?
Yeah, the culture was a bit different. They are considered to be the South, so we had to get used to eating brisket all the time, barbecue.
Like so much meat.
I probably gained 6 pounds within the first 3 months, and they said, oh yeah, everything's bigger in Texas. And that is true. They're very hospitable. You eat more. I feel in California, it's much more of a health conscious state. I did find, so my sisters and I were all gluten-free and dairy-free, not by choice, but because we all have, I guess genetics plays in this, but dietary issues. So that was a little bit hard and still is a little bit hard. I don't know anybody like in my area that seems to be gluten-free, so I have to kind of venture out to find that, where I feel like California was a lot easier to find things that I could eat. So I'm getting used to that, kind of used to bringing my own foods to barbecues. Yeah, I think that I've just had to teach my kids to embrace the culture, Now, my son, Richie, with autism, got in trouble all the time because he would not say ma'am, yes ma'am, no sir, no ma'am. So it's just fun. But I told my kids, this is a fun adventure. We're in a different place and we need to kind of learn to accept their culture and just embrace all the great things that come along with it. But yeah, it is, you wouldn't think it'd be that different, but sometimes it's almost like a different country.
Different bugs, different weather.
Yes.
Different
for sure.
activities.
Bigger bugs. Like I said, bigger bugs.
Bigger bugs. That's
Yes.
why I'm not moving to Texas. It's like the bugs.
Yeah.
I went to her house and the bugs were no good for me.
Yep.
So, as you all know, as things are changing rapidly in California and in other states, it's not necessarily the right answer for everyone to leave California to move to Boise and not Texas. And so it's really an individual choice. And, for Celeste, they chose to stay. Do you have any last words of wisdom that you'd like to share about staying and your feelings on that?
I don't know. We just love California, and with our parents here and my husband's parents here, it's nice being close to them and they're in their golden years, knowing we're around to be able to help when they need our help.
Well, and obviously, so a lot of you guys are in those different situations. Your parents are needing to or willing to move. And that is a huge decision factor in it because also Celeste's in-laws are in a position where they aren't going to move and don't need to and don't have the motivation to. And that's fine. And that works for them. And so, it would be probably very different if both your husband's parents and our parents were needing to leave.
Yeah.
I think you would still probably stay, but
we might. But that would definitely, depending on where everybody went,
that
would definitely factor in.
But you love your land and
I love my
hard.
land. I love my animals.
She loves her land, her animals.
I love my privacy and
hard to give that up when you have that. And then April, what about you? Any words of advice for people who are doing exactly what you guys did and leaving?
Well, I would just say, like we talked about before, it's just that leap of faith. And, if you make your pros and con list and, that there's things that are going to be important for staying maybe where you are, but there's going to be a list that's, that's good to move. And so you just have to kind of weigh those both out. But once you make that decision, just take that leap of faith, and just embrace what your decision is and go forward. And, you can always find good things in where you're moving. So, especially in Idaho. Summer Aston is your real estate agent.
So I want to thank Celeste and April for being with us today. So whether you guys are considering leaving California and you end up choosing to stay, like Celeste's family will be staying, or if you choose to leave and don't go to Texas though, come to Idaho. Then my team and I are here to help you with that. And that's what we do. We consult with you. Feel free to reach out to us to consult with you, to talk about, getting to know what Idaho has to offer and the timing and seeing if it's right for you. And we help plan with you in that timing as well. And, when is it right for you to sell your house, or do you wait till this or that? And obviously a lot of that we can't tell you what to do, but we can help consult with you in that way. And I even consult with people on whether or not Idaho is the right place for them. And I have had people choose to move to Texas over Boise when we talk. So make sure you go to my website, summerastonrealestate.com. You can contact us there. You can download the relocation guide, and always feel free to reach out to my team and I. We're always happy to help. I hope this conversation with my sisters has been helpful for you guys, and we will see you next time.